What up, y'all? And welcome back to another episode of the What's Up, Brodey podcast. This episode, we had JT on. Can't say enough, man. It was a great episode. I loved talking to him. It was fantastic. We talk about a lot of different things, really. We talk about his parents, his childhood, getting in trouble, turning his life around, CLA Jiu Jitsu. Yeah, man, it was really insightful. It was my first time meeting JT. I had a blast. And so I hope you all enjoy the episode as well. You can find, his jiu-jitsu gym currently in King's MMA. He teaches Mondays, Tuesdays, Wednesdays, Saturday, something like that, man. You can find his schedule on his Instagram, Legion Jiu-Jitsu _ATX. You can also find him on Instagram, JT Hates Jiu-Jitsu, where he is still actively competing. He's training at Kingsway. Yeah, I mean, like I said, it was a cool conversation. I learned a lot. He was very insightful, so I hope y'all enjoy it. As always, Redmond's, salt, electrolytes, toothpaste, seasonings, taco seasonings. Shit, they even got an apron. Doesn't matter. 15% off if you use code Brodey. So, thank you for listening. And for being a listener, you get 15% off on Redmond's. So, code Brodey, or in my bio on my Instagrams, The Life of Brodey, as well as the What's Up Brodey podcast. There's a link. If you click that, it'll take you to the store. You put everything in your cart, and that cart automatically has my discount. So, go ahead and check that out. Buy you some stuff. Their salt's the freaking best, man. You see my steaks all the time. Redmond salt. That's the only thing I put on them. And that's just the facts. Yeah, as well. Shirts. We have shirts. Small, medium, large, extra larges. They're $25. More than happy to drop them off. I can ship them. You can pick them up however you like, whatever's easier. But yeah, we got shirts. So if you want one, let me know. That's it, y'all. Enjoy the episode, and I'll see you next week. We call him Medium Dan. Super cool dude.
I love Daniel.
Yeah, he's a super cool guy.
When he was heading to the LA Open, I actually drove him back to the airport. That was the same day that we saved Dan from breaking his truck. I went and towed him because I was the only friend he had with a diesel truck that could tow the T-Rex. So we towed his truck, and then he got super sick while we were towing the truck, like almost passed out.
Which Dan?
Big Dan.
Oh, shit.
He went like hyperglycemic, and we were just dropping off the trailer. We had already dropped off the truck at the shop. We were dropping off the trailer, about to head home, and I'm unhitching the trailer, and I look back, and he falls on the ground on his hands and knees. I'm like, Dan, are you okay? And he's like, I don't feel good. I'm going to sit in the truck. I was like, okay, yeah, go ahead, dude. He was supposed to drive Daniel Schwartz to the airport after, so I was like, Dan, you're in no condition to, Yeah. So I drove Daniel Schwartz, and we just talked about life. It was my first conversation with Daniel Schwartz, and we actually had like a real like deep, manly conversation. So I was like, what a nice guy. Dude,
he's cool. Super cool guy. We had a ton of fun on the podcast, and then he whooped my ass in chess afterwards. Super smart. We determined that a Australian accent is just a lisp. When he takes his lisp off, if he tries really hard and talks without the lisp, his accent goes away. That's how he does an American accent, is stops the lisp. And so that was a good time. We just got to sync these cameras real quick. JT, don't fly too far from the mic over there. You don't got to be deep throwing it, but I also can't have you in Narnia.
Cool.
But yeah, we'll sync the cameras. We'll do a little jiu-jitsu clap, a little intro, and then boom.
Let's do it.
Yeah, let's fucking do it. You ready?
Yeah.
Let's have some fun. All right. On 3. 1, 2, 3. Woo! JT. What the fuck's up, dude?
Just happy to be here, man. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, appreciate you coming up. It's a little bit of a drive.
A little bit of a drive, but I think it's really beautiful up here. I like this area. It's really kind of similar to the area of Austin I'm from. I'm from Oak Hill, so.
Yeah, it's kind of like just opposite sides, but similar vibe. Like outskirts, small town. I mean, like not small town, but definitely more town vibes, more local businesses, at least up here. I don't know how it is for y'all.
It's the same way out there, man. It's super nice. It's starting to build up. We have 290 getting expanded, so major highway. Traffic was really terrible for quite some time.
Yes, it was.
All of my students are telling me it takes 20 minutes to get to the gym now instead of 30, 40 with traffic, so that's a blessing.
I used to live down there right where 290 and Mopac cross. There's an apartment complex around there. I used to live there, and anytime you had to go down 290, it was awful. That traffic was it too? Yeah, when you go, fucking not important. But
I found it.
Found what?
The spike.
Oh, let's pull it up. All right, ladies and gentlemen, she found it. She's been looking for this for quite some time. Oh yeah, this is definitely it. Yeah. Play it from the top. I want to see it live. I want to see how. Like, where did she mess up? Oh, jeez, Louise. What do I pay you for?
Scrubbing a 6-hour long video is very difficult.
It is true, but how did you manage?
I don't know.
All right, well.
As a side note, while she's looking at this, I need to talk to Kamoy. I would really love to get on the commentation team for this. I feel like I would be a good fit for commentary.
Dude, let's do it together. I would love that.
Yeah, we need to talk to Kamoy. I think we would make a great duo for this.
Dude, I would love that. That is actually something that I am hoping yeah. Oh, yeah. Replay that one more time. See if can you slow it down?
It looks like they're about to show it from another angle after too.
No, can't slow it down. So we're watching from main character Jiu-Jitsu. There's a match. She goes for a Haraya Goshi, but she has her. Yeah, she allows the girl to get a body lock and turn the corner as she goes to throw her, which then causes all of her weight to send her down into the mat. Yeah, it was bad.
Oof.
Yeah, it wasn't good.
It almost looks like she kind of knocked herself out there. Mm-hmm. I think she got concussed.
Yeah. Oh. Probably to say the least.
A lot of stuff going on that one.
Yeah, and then they had a lady in the audience, this lady in the red, who was just taking care of everybody all night.
And it was just a civilian.
Just had front row tickets.
Bless that lady.
Yeah, she was just taking care of everybody. I guess maybe a nurse, maybe a doctor.
Someone's face shut.
She did. She super glued. It was in the tag team match. It was the one of the brothers, the Odell brothers.
Odell, yeah.
Yeah, it was one of the Odell brothers. She super glued the
Nakoa after he
knocked himself out. What a crazy event. Only Kamoi can get away with this. He can only get away with this madness. Absolutely insane event. Yeah, dude, that
is... Look at the bend in the neck.
Yeah. Getting spiked is one thing. It's the give of the neck that does it for me. Oh,
can you run that back one more time?
Oh.
Oh, man, I hope she's okay. Yeah.
JT made the same face all 4 times, but wanted to run it back one more time.
She ended up surprisingly walking.
She shouldn't have walked off,
but she should not have.
I don't think she. Yeah,
probably should have been stretchered.
Yeah, you should have probably been stretchered out. But that's the difference between jiu-jitsu events. Shout out Mama Long Legs for getting your purple belt.
Yeah.
That's the difference between talking hard. Shit, should have had water. Jiu-jitsu events where they're not required to have, EMS, huh? I'll take that. Yeah, thank you. They're not required to have EMS on, like an ambulance, like Muay Thai events are, or MMA events. Muay Thai events and MMA events, if the ambulance has to take somebody out and take them to the hospital, the event has to stop until the ambulance gets back.
Okay.
And so we were
her walking off right here.
We were.
Yeah.
Probably should not have walked out.
Neck, head, spine. You definitely shouldn't be walking after. Have to isolate the head and stretch
you just have
them
no
off.
idea. You just have no idea what the damage could be. Yeah. Hopefully she's okay though. Yeah, so Muay Thai event, we were at Coalition Muay Thai. Yeah, we were at Coalition. Dude, I don't know what it is with my luck. We were at Coalition Muay Thai in San Antonio. One of my buddy's friends runs the promotion, or runs the like matchmaking. And we're there, and it's like the 8th or 9th fight, and this dude, all you hear is just shins, whack, and the guy goes to step his foot down, and boop. And we were like, I have now seen almost every single one of those, either live on television or now in person. And I'm like, oh. And so the guy clearly had to get taken to the hospital. So the whole event stopped for, 10, 15 minutes. Usually they're pretty positioned close-ish to a hospital, so it doesn't take too long. But yeah, they can't resume until the ambulance is back.
She had to have surgery.
Oh, neck surgery? Mm-hmm. Oh, man.
She had surgery and is on track for a relatively quick recovery.
Okay.
I did hear about that. Yeah, she had to have surgery the same day.
Did they have any information on what the injury was?
It's just someone in the comments saying this is her friend. She had surgery and is on track for a relatively quick recovery.
Well, that's a blessing.
Trying to find more information, but that's...
Yeah, I mean, I would imagine by minimum a bulged disc at minimum. Like, I mean...
Some people like the blood sport, especially a lot of people that have an MMA background, when they watch the jiu-jitsu events and someone gets injured, that's exciting to them. Now that I've started to become a coach, I'm really cognizant of everybody's safety, so I'm really anti-injury. Yeah. Whereas when I was a competitor, blue and purple belt, I was a, not to be, talking too highly of myself, but I considered myself, not to brag. I considered myself a relatively good leg locker, and I was confident in my braking mechanics. And I think in a lot of my matches through blue and purple belt, I hurt a lot of people, unfortunately, especially at the, tougher promotions. You see guys more willing to, let their foot pop or break, So, when I was a competitor, I thought it was kind of cool when you broke someone. But now as a coach, I see the implications. My students wouldn't be able to train. They'd have to take time off. And, jiu-jitsu and MMA training sometimes is really important for people's mental health.
Yep.
I just recently went through a minor surgery, so I had to take 3 weeks off of training. And, your mental health gets a little funky when you're not on the mats training. You don't realize how important it is to you.
Oh, for sure. I mean, dude, I got Uchimated like 3 weeks ago. Yeah, dude, don't even worry about it, bro. You're good. The table it'll be fine. I got Uchi'd from Dogfight a couple weeks ago. I was going with one of the guys who's competing today, Levi, ex-wrestler, big dude, probably like 220, 230. And we're in Dogfight, and I was like, ooh, I'm going to knee tap him. I'm going to finally take this guy down, sort of, right? And I went for the knee tap, and he said, psych, and Uchi me at the same time. And I knew it was coming, and so I was like, all right, I'm going to underscoop the leg and roll through. And so I started to roll through and just boom, landed directly on my shoulder, just spiked to the shoulder right into the ground. And it's been fucked since. And I took like a week off, and I'm like, dude, I can't go any longer. I'm just going to roll real light, protect myself on that side. Don't let nobody get a hold of it. But I was like, I can't. I have to train. Oh, wow. How'd you find this?
Her surgery was successful. Her recovery so far has been excellent. She's hitting all post-op therapy milestones. They're blessed for the circumstance and the severity of the injury to not only have her still with us, but to be able to walk.
Wow.
So it seemed relatively serious.
Man.
I mean, so she probably broke it.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Wow. Well, good for her. I'm glad that she is okay walking, able to walk. Mm-hmm. Immediately after, that's a good sign.
Yeah.
Yeah, she's probably gonna be in that brace for a little bit though.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a blessing, man. That is head and neck injuries are a very serious thing, potentially career ending. So it's good to see that she's up and moving around. I just hope she takes the necessary precautions, gets the, aftercare that she needs, and she doesn't re-injure it.
Yeah, rehab.
Yeah.
You have to. Re-strengthen and rehab. Those are ones you can't play with. My shoulders, I'm like, fine. But neck, back. I got stem cells in my lower back in December. And so I had already take like 3.5 months off. So I'm like, dude, I'm just now getting back. My cardio was back. I was feeling good. I was like, all right, I'm going to compete next month. And then boom. And I was like, dude, I just can't stay healthy. That's my kryptonite. I just constantly get injured.
Yeah. I feel extremely blessed at the fact that I've never had any debilitating injuries as far as jiu-jitsu go. I've been training since I was about 13 now. So give or take about coming up on 13, 14 years. Yeah. So, I've never been severely injured. Minor things. I broke fingers, broke toes. I've popped my rib, hurt my neck, shoulder. But everything, right? I've hurt everything, my knee, my ankles, wrists. But
no major tears.
No major tears. Yeah. I've never had any surgeries. I never really needed any rehab. So that's kind of a blessing in itself. How do you feel about the stem cell therapy? Tell me about this.
Yeah, so I felt good. I think there is some other structural issues that I need to get fixed with more of I think I have a really nasty pelvic tilt. And so my pelvis flares backwards and then to my right. And so what it does is my belly button and my pelvis will sometimes be off-centered. And so I'll get into a really bad, it'll just be super tight and it won't really allow me to move at the waist. And so I have disc degeneration disease as well in my L5.
Oh, no.
And so I was having a lot of issues. I was competing pretty frequently. I competed 12 times last year, which, for a hobbyist, it's not great. Bad, right? And so it was a good bit of time. 12 might be too much. It was enough. And so by the time I got to the last 2 super fights I did last year, I was like, dude, when I'm done with this, I'm taking a few months off. I was praying to be just to make it through the matches. Oh, fuck winning. I was just please just let me make it through these and get this done. And so I was just in so much pain with my lower back. And so I ended up going to Ways to Well. They were running a Black Friday deal, made an impulse decision, just signed up that same day. They sent me the email with the promotion. So I think it was one shot. One of the dosages ended up coming out to be free, essentially. So I ended up getting 4 dosages. One was kind of free in a way.
Okay.
And so still spent a decent chunk. And went there, got it. Probably took 15 minutes. Only one of them hurt because one of them actually had to go through my SI joint and actually into the SI ligament. That sucked because that needle was I can only imagine this long it felt like, and they had to leave it in there for quite some time. And so it felt like I just wanted to just kick, donkey kick the whole time. And so you have to hold your legs still. And it was just, that part was uncomfortable. And it probably was 2 or 3 minutes of just constant flex. And so that was the only uncomfortable part about getting them. The first 2 into my lower back, just adjacent to my spine on each side, didn't feel it. It was instant, boom, boom, done. And then the last dose is through a IV. And so then that is to push the stem cells to that one area, because otherwise when you get them, sometimes they kind of just want to go anywhere. And we're just so inflamed all the time that the stem cells would get into the body and be like, oh shit, there's something over here to fix. There's something over here to fix. And the IV push is to hopefully keep the majority of them in the area that you're targeting.
Right.
And so got it. And honestly, dude, it was pretty instant relief for the first couple of weeks. Just full blown mobility, bending I've never bent before. Training again and doing all that. I'm still kind of stiff. But the flare-ups are far less and it feels stronger. Obviously the tilt in the pelvis, I think there's just something structurally that I need to just get worked out, whether it's chiropractor, whether it's just a lot of deep tissue massage. whatever it is, there's some kind of imbalance, some kind of muscular imbalance that is causing them to like restrict and then get stuck in a tilt. And so until I figure that out, I'll probably have those issues for a bit. But the actual area itself doesn't hurt nearly as much, feels stronger. So overall, I really enjoyed it. It seems like it helped a lot.
I haven't gotten in on the stem cells yet. I haven't really had the need to. Like I said, I hadn't been severely injured yet. But recently, Big Dan, which, by the way, shout out Big Dan, he's the man, recommended me to a mobile drip nurse. And I got recently some NAD Plus injections.
Yeah, okay, I saw that.
NAD Plus is some good stuff, man. Yeah. The only thing that was unfortunate about it is when I got the injection, I got about 175 milligrams, which is a relatively large dose for your first time. And the drip nurse that did it in an injection format, so I got it directly injected into
all at once.
Yeah, all at once into my butt cheek.
Nice.
And
nice.
My girlfriend was also getting the same injection. She's terrified of needles.
That's that one.
Yeah. So, I'm not necessarily a big fan of it, but I couldn't freak out and allow my girlfriend to know that it was an uncomfortable situation because she was already. Her hands get clammy. Yep, she starts sweating. She gets anxious and nervous.
Big boy pants on.
So she shot it in the butt, and it hurt really bad. I think it also had to do with the temperature of the NAD Plus.
That's what it burns, right?
It burned fire, and then my butt cheek went numb, and I was like, "Oh yeah, it's not bad at all." And I was immense emotional and physical pain underneath. Yeah. And I was like, oh, no, it's fine, honey. And then as soon as she sticks the needle in, Kayla's face goes white. And I was like, yeah, that shit sucks, doesn't it? And she's like, you said it was fine. You said it didn't hurt. And I was like, I lied.
Yeah. I've heard that it burns. Like but I heard it does some wonders though.
The day after, I went to the gym, and you could say maybe it's slightly placebo just because I guess I was feeling good about myself. Right, you want it to work, but I PR'd on incline. I just went in and I felt so strong, and I was like, dude, I feel like, and I had no intention of actually PRing that day. But I PR'd on my incline bench just randomly, and I was like, okay, maybe there is some merit to this stuff. And then the next few days, I noticed throughout my training sessions, I wasn't nearly as tired.
Interesting. What is like the sales pitch for NAD? Like, what do they tell you?
So there's a lot of benefits to it, but essentially what it does is it recharges all of your mitochondria in your body. Obviously, the mitochondria is the powerhouse of the cell. Throughout your life, your mitochondria are constantly dying, and there'll never be the same amount of them, So what NAD Plus does is essentially it recharges those mitochondria and brings some of those mitochondria back to life. At least that's my understanding of it. I'm not a doctor. I'm not entirely familiar with the whole process, but this is what I've been led to understand. So don't take my advice 100% on that. But I can speak that there definitely is some merit behind it because I noticed that my energy levels went up. They say that it can reduce aging. You see, here we go.
Yeah, regulate aging, repair DNA, power energy metabolism.
So it's interesting that one of the things that you said is that you felt less tired. Yeah. So one of the peptides that I've been very curious in trying is MOTS-C.
Okay.
And its specific like what it's trying to do is the same thing. Yeah, it helps with your mitochondria. And my buddy is currently taking it, and he said he felt a very significant cardio boost. And so very similar to what you're explaining with the NAD. And so that's been something that I've been wanting to try because Jeremy Renner was a big fan.
Okay.
Are you familiar with what happened to him? He got ran over by a snowplow.
No, I'm not. That's crazy.
Yeah, so he owns some land up in the mountains. I think in like Lake Tahoe, if I'm not mistaken.
Wow.
Owns some land, lives up there, doesn't go to the city unless he's got a movie or something. Mostly completely stays like out there. And it's in the middle of the winter. And he drives one of those big ones. See if you can't find the plow. And he drives one of the big ones. Like 16 wheels with the Jesus, dude, I am
the tracks.
Yes,
yeah.
I didn't know if that was the word. The tracks, and so yes, here it is. And so,
one of these guys ran over.
Well, so he's driving it and plowing the snow at his property, and then, like he realized it couldn't stop or it wasn't gonna stop, and his nephew was in the way.
Oh no!
And so he jumps out of the snowplow to save his nephew, and that thing, the track, ran him over, popped an eye out, broke every bone in his body.
14,000 pound snowplow.
Yeah.
How do you even survive something like that?
Very carefully.
God, like someone's watching out for you.
Yeah,
like there's no other.
Technically, he did die, and they like resuscitated him and brought him back.
There's no other explanation. He literally broke every bone in his body. His eye pops out, but he saved his nephew, right? And it's a beautiful story. He was on Joe Rogan. He talked about it. I actually have his book where he talks about it.
Wow.
I hadn't read it, but
14 ribs,
broken jaw, broken knee,
pierced liver, and his eye popped out of socket.
Okay, maybe it wasn't every bone, but most of them.
I mean,
a good bit.
Yeah.
And so anyways, he was on Chris Williamson. He was talking about the peptides that he used to kind of help recover and heal and start feeling better. And one of the ones that he was a big fan, everybody talks about BPC and TB500, right? Everybody talks about those. And so he was like, no, MOTS-C was a big one for him. And he was explaining it very similar to what you experienced with the NAD. How long did you notice that those effects kind of lasted for?
I noticed them for about a week.
It was pretty good.
I mean, then it started to taper off. I could definitely see the value in, the athletes that are cutting weight, for like, if you're doing an ADCC event, maybe something like an IBJJF, something of merit for grappling. I could see the benefit of doing it. Obviously, it's kind of cost prohibitive.
It's expensive.
It is expensive. So for my girlfriend and I to get, and we didn't just do the NAD plus, we also did like a recovery IV as well, which had a handful of vitamins and stuff in it, which, then the other thing is I did the NAD plus, but I also did, the vitamin and mineral drip. So I don't know how much of that was NAD, maybe something I should do in the future is just do the NAD and see how the effects treat me. But for 2 IVs for both of us, it was about $800.
Well, that's not. Yeah, I mean that's a lot, comparatively. But given some of the pricing for like other places, it's not terrible.
No, it's really not. But it was really funny because I was talking to the mobile drip nurse and I said, I was just asking her about her clientele. I'm always interested about people's business models and the way that it functions and stuff. And she said, I do an unbelievable amount of rich, like raver, like drug addict people that just go out on the weekend. They'll go, roll on some Molly at one of the Coachellas or the ACLs. And then they're so defeated afterwards, they'll call her over and she does the Restore IVs for the vitamins and minerals and then the NAD plus. One of the things that I didn't know about NAD that I thought was extremely interesting is that they're finding a correlation between NAD plus and drug and alcohol recovery. They say that, and if you could look this up just so, I'm not sounding, silly here. They say that NAD plus helps with the receptors in your brains that also deal with drug and alcohol addiction. And essentially, as you take more and more NAD plus, your desire to use drugs like opiates in particular diminishes.
Interesting.
It seems like it detoxes your body from alcohol, opioids, and other substances.
This is something that I was talking to her about. I'll shout her out right now if that's okay with you.
Yeah, of course.
Kara, the mobile drip nurse on Instagram, she's really awesome. Guys, if you ever need a mobile IV, she's available all in Austin. But we were talking about it, and she was actually telling me a story about one of her clients who was a alcohol and opioid addict that had been addicted for years. and she was using weekly NAD injections, and through the use of it, she said the desire for her to drink and use opioids diminished drastically. So
That's incredible.
We have all these resources available to us now, and it's really sad that the American healthcare system doesn't push these alternative methods to help people. Obviously, Big Pharma has an interest in the opioid addiction crisis in America. I don't know if you've ever fallen down the rabbit hole about Purdue and the Sackler family.
All of them.
Right.
There's not a rabbit hole I have not been down.
I'm the same way.
Unfortunately. But fortunately.
Right. There was a recent Netflix documentary about the Sackler and...
the documentary or the docuseries?
The docuseries, I'm sorry.
With Taylor Kish?
Yes, what was the name? Painkillers.
Painkiller, yep.
Amazing series.
Fantastic.
I enjoyed it.
Oh, yeah.
And,
yeah,
man, it really kind of gets to the gritty reality of addiction, and it's really sad. I grew up in a household where addiction was super prevalent, so knowing that we have these resources now available to us, it's kind of sad for me because I would have liked to get some of my family members involved with this stuff because I think it's so beneficial for recovery. Yeah.
Are you familiar with ibogaine?
The root from Latin America that it also affects.
Yeah. So it from what I understand, the last time I've looked it up and kind of followed along, William Hubbard, if I'm not mistaken, he was on Joe Rogan, and one of the things that has always stuck with me is he said that one dose has an 88% success rate, and 2 doses has a 96% success rate. Astounding numbers, where someone is going from doing heroin the day before to 1 dose, which from what I understand is a very miserable 24 hours. It's not a fun psychedelic from what, from the stories that he's told and how intensive the care is. You have to be watched the entire time. But apparently it's a 24-hour, not very fun time. Nobody ever wants to do it again. But you go from heroin the day before to tripping for 24 hours to never touching it again.
Yeah.
Which is, it's crazy. We talk about it all the time, dude. Alcohol and pills, man. Those are the 2 right there. Those are the 2, man. And they're the 2 that are so easy to get.
Very easily accessible.
So easy. What was it for the family? Was it alcohol or?
Alcohol, pills.
Yep.
My mom was a recovering addict and alcoholic throughout my childhood. And in her later years, when I was a teenager, she started to openly get back into alcohol and drugs. And my mom passed away in 2024 of cirrhosis of the liver directly from her drinking and drug use.
I'm sorry to hear that.
Yeah, man.
What was that? What was that like for you growing up? Hey, baby Logan, keep it down over there. Oh, what up, y'all? Hey, I need just a few seconds of your time. I apologize, I'm interrupting the conversation, but I need to talk to you about Redmond Relight. They're the best electrolytes I've tried. The flavor's fantastic. They actually have an actual serving of sodium in there that's going to replenish you after your hard workout. 820 milligrams of sodium. It's what you need after your workout. It's great first thing in the morning. That's how I personally use it. But nonetheless, as a What's Up Brodey listener, you can get 15% off by using code Brodey, or you can follow the link in the bio and follow that to checkout, and that'll also get you 15% off as well. Now back to the conversation.
Training in-house at my own gym, we do CLA games. Mm-hmm. So I think with the conglomeration of those 2 and then just a lot of hard work, I think it's going to be a year for me these next few years are going to be years for me to be a breakout athlete as far as the, jiu-jitsu game goes, God willing. And all I really want to be is a resource to people. I tell my students all the time, guys, all I want to do is be a resource for you guys. And what I really want to get into by winning these competitions and, building some type of notoriety is to kind of give hope to the people that get involved in jiu-jitsu that didn't come from like the best backgrounds, you know. I had a really rough childhood. I was always in and out of trouble with the law when I was a kid. I lost both of my parents. I lost my dad when I was 23 and I lost my mom when I was 24. So, you know, I've been through the ringer, but I want to, you know, be able to compete on these stages and kind of give hope for the kids and, you know, the young guys that are coming up that didn't have the best background and, you know, are feeling hopeless. They feel like they might not be able to make their way in like life or, you know, the jiu-jitsu competition scene. I just want to be able to give hope to those people, you know?
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
That's my goal. I recently talked to my girlfriend and I told her, I was like, you know, I'm a big Christian. I don't know if you're a believer or not, but, I told her that, you know, I feel like God has put all these obstacles in my life and made me go through all these things because I'm meant to help people through them, you know?
Yeah. I mean, you know, it's, that give your soldiers how's it go? You give your
hardest battles to your strongest soldiers.
There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so it's like, you know, it was meant to happen that way. It's unfortunate, but it made you who you are.
Of course.
Right. What did you learn? Cause you have a son. Yeah. What did you learn or what did you see that you just like, man, that guy, you just can't repeat these habits?
Yeah. You know, to begin with, I've never been a huge fan of alcohol. I don't think I've ever really had problems with alcohol. I never quite understood the appeal to it.
That's fair. I get that.
I understand, like, you know, drinking for social reasons. I guess, you know, it could kind of soothe or like lubricate conversations. But I've never really had a problem talking to people. So it never made sense for me in that essence. I know that a lot of people that have drinking problems, they say that it makes it easier for them to communicate. So I've never quite understood that. And, you know, when I had been inebriated under alcohol, I was always a very nice person.
Yeah.
You know, I was a happy, kind of cheerful guy. I was always the dude, oh man, I love you so much, bro. You're my best friend. You know, I was always that type of person when I was inebriated. But there is obviously the opposite of the spectrum where some people start drinking and they get angry. You know, they get really mean. They start, you know, doing crazy, like irrational things. So growing up around it, I obviously told myself, you know, I don't want to be an alcoholic. But I've also been surrounded by recovering alcoholics, and they tell me that it's a problem for them. They can't just take one drink, you know. It's not like me where I could take a glass of wine and then set it down and be like, okay, that's enough. Most of the time when someone hands me a drink, I don't even finish it. You know, I'll take a few sips for it and leave it out. But it's been explained to me that, you know, oh, I have one drink and then I have another. And then I have another, and then I think to myself, oh, maybe it's time to go and find some cocaine.
Yep.
I need to go and find some other drugs.
Yep.
And, you know, I've never understood that appeal. I think it's different for everybody. And that's why I think recovery is such a unique and personal thing. And another reason why I think the U.S. system fails so many people. I mean, I can't think of the percentage, but I know there's an astounding percentage of people who go into rehab. And the first thing they do is, as soon as they get out of rehab, is they go drink or go use drugs again. I would be interested if you could look up. Yeah, she's looking it up. I'm curious what the percentage is. I remember hearing it and it being relatively high.
40 to 60%.
Yeah, that's
relapse after completing addiction treatment.
Yeah. Two things there. I'm in the belief that definitely alcohol just exaggerates your personality or what your personality is at that moment. Or like in the time, right? I think, you know, some of these people are in real dark places. So then when they start to drink, it just exaggerates that dark place that they're in. Cause I'm the same way, dude. I get drunk and I just want to give everybody a hug. I just nice as hell, but I'm nice anyways. And so it just exaggerates that version of me and just like trying to give everybody a hug. I'm super sociable because I'm sociable sober. And so then I get drunk and I just fucking want to talk to everybody. And so I have a very similar experience, but I'm also in the same boat where I can have half a glass of wine and be like, you know what? I don't actually feel like doing this right now.
Yeah.
And not drinking any more of it. But I think I think the common denominator really just comes down to, and it's not to minimize it, but at the same time, you see this now with Ozempic and GLPs, where, yeah, we talk about how, the system might be failing these folks, but at the same time, what percentage of them actually want to change anyways?
Yeah.
Right? Like truly want to change. Not like at rock bottom, like, oh, I just feel so bad, I want to make this change. No. Like actually waking up the next day and making a decision that is going to change, right? And I think there's definitely its own struggles in that. But right now, the reason why I compare it to kind of Ozempic is I know people who are using it as a crutch and they're terrified to come off because they're like, if I come off, what's going to stop me? Because my understanding of GLPs is it pretty much just quiets the food noise. So instead of having the discipline and saying, no, I'm just not going to do it, you're now supplementing that with a GLP that is shutting it off. Very similar to like a painkiller. Instead of feeling the pain, you're just going to shut off your body to the brain. And now I don't feel the pain. The pain's still there. I just don't feel it anymore. Yeah. And so you're kind of doing the same thing with a GLP. And I know people who are like, man, I'm scared to come off because I don't want to go back to being, 400 pounds, 300 pounds, 600 pounds, whatever they started at. And it's an interesting dilemma that people find themselves in because I think they started with a very good intention. Probably the alternative was a lot worse for, most people. I think it's definitely some people that, there's definitely people I knew that took it and they were just girls in their 20s, right? They were already in shape. They just took it so that they stopped eating, right? Mm-hmm. But the people who were taking in like severely overweight or having severe health issues, it was probably the right choice. But now these people are having troubles coming off of it because they didn't actually build the skill or the discipline to then come off of it.
I agree with you, man. And I think the GLPs are another group of drugs that, they're relatively new and we're already starting to see the negative effects of them. And we kind of go, and I've noticed this, at least in my experience with certain drugs. Obviously, I wasn't around when the opioid epidemic had started with OxyContin with the Purdue and Sackler family. But what I see as the common denominator in the thing is the normalization of the drug. So when Purdue and the Sackler family started creating OxyContin, I obviously you've fallen down this rabbit hole, but for the people who are watching that are unfamiliar with it, essentially what they would do is they would have their attractive women representatives go out, speak to doctors, and would provide them with incentives to prescribe OxyContin to patients. And I don't remember exactly how it had worked, but they were able to slip past the FDA rating that said that OxyContin wasn't habit forming.
Janet Woodcock.
Yes. Okay. You remember specifically, but for the people who are watching, they had essentially normalized the drug. They went out to doctors and everybody was getting prescribed it, even for minor pain at the time. Yep. And I believe they said that the original OxyContin was 4 times stronger than the current oxycodone, which is like now what OxyContin is. But it was 4 times stronger. So you got to think about it, it was 4 times as addictive. And we normalized that drug and everybody started to get on it, and then an epidemic started. I think we're starting to normalize the GLP, also the peptides. Certain peptides are, I'm sure in the years to come, we're going to learn that some of these peptides weren't as healthy as we thought they were. They were more detrimental to our health than we had originally, thought. And that's where it all starts, the normalization of the drugs, and that's what's happening with the GLPs right now. And I think in the next 10 to 20 years, we're going to start to see the after effects of that. Like we're already seeing the lawsuits against some companies for people who are experiencing bone density reduction, blindness, gut issues, GI tract issues. Another big one was that they learned that some of the GLPs have an effect on the brain that correlates with the desire center. So it not only numbs your desire to eat, but it also numbs your desire for any external feelings like love.
Interesting.
They were saying, and when she comes back, we'll have her look it up. They're saying that there's a correlation between people who are taking GLPs and they're having problems in their marriages and relationships because they no longer feel as much desire.
That's interesting. Yeah, I know, I think it's similar with a lot of things. A lot of it comes down to like a dosing issue. Brigham Bueller talked about this, where he was talking about how a lot of the GLP issues are coming from just dosing issues. Just people are just taking outrageous doses.
Right.
And that was, it ties back to what you were saying about the Oxycontin. Dude, one of the craziest things that they were doing is they were paying those sales reps. Mm-hmm. They were paying them based on the dosage, not the number of pills, the dosage. And they got up to 180 milligrams. And those were called oxycoffins because people were just taking them and then flatlining. That was it. Like, it was a wrap. And it actually happens in the show. There's those folks that go into the pharmacy and then they end up taking it in their car, and then that was a wrap.
Nodding off.
Those are those oxycoffins. I mean, dude, 180 milligram oxycontin, it's fucking nuts.
Yeah.
All at once, right? Then you hear people like, I think it was Kurt Angle, who was on Joe Rogan talking about how he had 16 different pharmacists that he would go to, and he was doing 30,000 pills a month.
30,000 pills a month. Wow.
At his peak.
How do you even consume that many?
Dude,
I feel like that must be exaggerated.
Maybe to a certain extent, probably, but he said he was waking up. He said he was waking up and doing just a handful and just popping them.
He also is a big dude.
He's a big dude.
So
it could be, there's it could be a little bit of hyperbole. Us guys like to talk in hyperbole in general. It could, but I'm sure it's somewhere in a ballpark range where he was just doing a shit ton. But I thought it was just, it's crazy. 16 different pharmacists. The amount of effort involved, right? Like the amount of effort that he is putting in each month to then accomplish that.
Yeah.
But those, dude, WWE, WWF, those guys are crazy. Mm-hmm. Those guys put their body through like nobody else. The Undertaker talked about how he did like 7 years of 364s, 365s, just 7 years straight. Just a show every night.
It's really crazy for me. I'm 25 now, so I'm starting to feel like I'm becoming an adult. Yeah,
that's fair.
I grew up relatively quick, and I was doing adult stuff at 18. I joined the trades, and when I was 22, I was taking care of my dad full time. So I feel like I grew up relatively fast, but I still feel like I'm becoming an adult. And what I'm starting to realize is as an adult, you're so surprised how many people use drugs recreationally.
Oh yeah,
like serious drugs.
Yeah.
I was never personally a fan of cocaine. I've maybe done it a handful of times in my life. I don't recommend it to anybody. Obviously, doing any type of drug is bad. So if anybody comes on here, I will personally say that I don't ever promote the use of any illegal substances. But I guess I could understand the appeal. But when I was 18 years old, I was a kid, mm-hmm. and I was on a job site with 30, 40, 50-year-old dudes. And in the construction industry, obviously, cocaine is a huge issue. I won't mention him by name, but I was very good friends with a foreman, and really stand-up guy. He saw me through some of the worst times of my life, and honestly probably saved my life on a handful of occasions. So I really do appreciate that guy. I wish him nothing but the best, and I pray that he just has a happy and healthy family. But I watched him take a dive into addiction firsthand. And, I had also seen my mom go through it as a kid, but it's different because it's your family. To see someone that isn't your immediate family go through addiction, and then you start to see it pull apart their family. It had started off small, where a handful of dudes on the job site had offered him, just a bump of cocaine here and there. And then he started buying some. And at first it was, $60 worth. And
Yep.
he would be like, oh, JT, do you want something? No, I'm okay, man. Keep it to yourself. And then I would see him start wandering off the job site randomly. I would be on like a higher level. We did commercial high rises. So I would be on like the 4th or the 10th or the 12th floor. And we had very unique vests at our company. We look different than everybody else on the job site. So it's very easy to identify us. That was the purpose, because electricians are always needing to be identified on the job site. Everybody needs power. And I would see him wander off and get into people's cars. And then it got to the point where he'd actually started asking me, hey, can I borrow some cash from you? I'll pay you back. And, me being naive, he's like, oh, I'm going to go buy lunch and stuff. I left my card at home and I don't have Apple Pay on my phone. Oh yeah, sure, man. Here's some cash. And he'd bring it back at first. And then he started borrowing cash from me, and it became more frequent. Like, oh, my wife took my card. She's not letting me have it because she's upset about me buying lunch. Can you buy me some lunch? I'm like, yeah, bro, here. And then it started getting to the point where he wasn't paying me back. And I started hunting him down. And then that was when he kind of came clean, and he said, I've been using cocaine every day, multiple times a day. And I had already known at that point. He was also my boss at the time. So, you don't want to tell your boss no, because he could make your life miserable, especially in construction. But he was using up to $6,000 a month. So a little less than what he was making. Essentially, all of his paycheck was starting to go towards cocaine.
Fuck.
And it got to the point where I actually had his wife call me and say, this cocaine's making him erratic at home. He's starting to come home and get violent, paranoid, because he's staying up all night. I don't know what's going on with my husband. And I remember one day I actually had to sit down with him and have a heart with him. And he also grew up with addict parents as well. So I told him, I said, look, man, I'll tell you from experience, drug addiction ruined my family. I don't have a good relationship with certain members of my family anymore. And I told him, I said, dude, your addiction is going to destroy your family, and you're going to lose everything you ever worked for. And he had an amazing life. His house was paid off. Beautiful home in Pflugerville. Beautiful. Beautiful wife. 3 daughters now and a son. Beautiful family. I mean, everything is picture perfect, but this drug addiction was just consuming his life. And I told him, I said, you're going to ruin it all. And the only person that's going to be to blame is you. And if you don't get this under control, and then, he slowly started to taper off. And the last I spoke to him, he was clean. I haven't spoke to him in quite some time. So, I pray to God that he still is. But it's crazy seeing how fast the drop is in people's life once they start to get addicted to these substances.
Yeah, cocaine is one of them too. Cocaine, everybody talks about the fun times, but it inevitably ends in a train wreck. There's never a good ending to a cocaine story. It doesn't end well. Like, people have a lot of fun for a bit, and then it almost always ends in a terrible train wreck. It is one that I've never done, thankfully.
It's not worth it.
Yeah, no, I've never. It's never appealed to me because I think I would probably enjoy it too much, and I'm very good at identifying things like that and being like, no. Because again, it's one of those ones that just seems like it gets a hold of you, and it is a crazy hold, right? Obviously, like, heroin and alcohol seem to do that on another level as well. Meth seems to do a similar thing, but those aren't as appealing in general. I mean, maybe with the exception of like alcohol, but if you're not a super adventurous, I don't see you don't really find yourself in a heroin and meth addiction typically, right? It typically takes a very impulsive person, and they're like, what, this seems like a good time, let's try this once, and then they get bit by the balls, right? But cocaine's kind of one of those ones. It's pretty widely available. It's pretty easy to do on just a recreational habit, right? Like, I knew people who used to do it just on weekends, or they would do it maybe once a month, and you see these people and you're like, oh, okay, wow, that's pretty impressive. But then you just see people it gets a hold of them. And so I wanted nothing to do with that. I'll stick to weed and psychedelics. I want nothing to do with the rest of it. I just did, I'm good. I don't have any desire to do any of those.
I think one of the biggest things about drug addiction is the relationship in which you have with it. I think it's individually unique. And I remember when I was in school, I was doing, which is funny because I was such a bad kid when I was a kid.
How so, JT? How so? I find this really hard to believe.
I can say from experience, but besides my mom being an addict and an alcoholic growing up, my dad was a really good dad. He was a very, very tough, strong man, toughest dude I ever knew. Rest his soul. And if I could be like anybody, I'd want to be like my dad. Maybe for my son especially, I try to be more emotionally available. He had a really, really rough go at life, alcoholic, abusive dad. They were really, really poor. They were so poor that their electricity would go out and they would have to run generators to power their house. And they lived off of clothing from church donations. And, the majority of his dad's paycheck went to alcohol. And, he would tell me that when they were kids, he would line the kids up and beat them, him and his 3 brothers. Just terribly traumatic stuff. So given the fact that, he went through that and then turned out as well as he did as a dad is really incredible.
Yeah.
I try to show everyone extreme grace when it comes to stuff. I try to be understanding. Even my mom had a really rough childhood as well. So I forgive her 100% for all of the stuff we went through. And I think the ability to show grace is one of the most important human features. Like I said, the past few years, I really started to get close with God. So I understand the value of forgiveness and showing empathy and being understanding. And all the people who have done, wrong to me in life, I still forgive. But where I was going with this is I had a little bit of an emotionally absent dad. And then, my mom was an addict. And it's kind of hard to say where it started. But I think it was just hanging out with the wrong people. And I grew up in a relatively small town, Rockport, Texas, which has a population now of about 10,000 plus people. Mm-hmm. It's a rural fishing town. So really the only thing to do out in those towns when you're a kid is, drink and do drugs. And, I did plenty of both of those things when I was a kid. And, when you're a kid drinking and doing drugs, you just want to get into bad stuff. So I sold drugs when I was a kid, and I of course got arrested for said things. I got expelled from school for fighting. I was in alternative school for quite some time.
What age?
Let's see. It's a good question. I was pretty good up until my sophomore year of school, which just as a caveat, which is really funny, I was always a very good student. I always had excellent grades. I did all AP classes, and then on top of that, I did dual credit classes my junior year. So I was doing college prep work as I was doing all these things. And I was also really big into ROTC at the time, which is just really funny because I did all these things that made me look like a good kid. I got good grades. I was always very friendly with teachers. I was never disrespectful to teachers.
But then a part-time delinquent.
Outside of it. I was always getting in trouble with the cops. And
what do you think it was? Like, do you ever sit back and reflect on it and like, why were you so good in school and then lashed out maybe afterwards or out of school?
It's a really good question. I've never really thought about it. If you'll give me a second, I might come up with a profound answer. To be honest, I was fucking terrified of my parents.
Oh, interesting.
My mom and dad were both very caring and giving people. They're the type of people that would literally give the shirt off their back to help people. But as a flip side, I remember one time when I was a kid, I came home high, and I was obviously very paranoid. So I said, "Oh, what's up, Mom? What's up, Dad?" And then I went to my room and I closed my door real quick, and I'm like, all right, I'm safe. I laid down. My dad came in. He's like, "You're fucking high right now, aren't you?" And I'm like, "No, I'm not." Beat my ass with a belt, dude. So I was definitely very terrified of my parents, but also I just always wanted to be respectful to people. I understand the teachers are just there to do their job, so I was always super respectful. And I think it was actually really heartbreaking for a lot of my teachers when I started getting in trouble, and also my ROTC instructors, because it was really funny. The day before I got expelled from school and went to alternative school, I got a leadership position in ROTC. I was the assistant CO for the unit, so I was the second most important kid in the ROTC unit. And then the next day I got arrested on school campus because I had drugs in my car. I had some prescription medication, and I got expelled. And then a week later after that, I also got arrested for selling prescription medication at my home. And then, yeah, it just all went downhill from there. I had to finish my junior and senior year of school online while working a full-time job. And if anything, I'm almost extremely grateful for the experience, because that's when I started to take jiu-jitsu seriously. It was around 18 when I was working a full-time job. I was doing all of my schooling online. I started to commute to Corpus and start training full-time. And jiu-jitsu was kind of that outlet that put me on the right path and kind of saved my life.
Excuse me.
No, you're good.
No, it's interesting because it sounds like when you were going through this, you were always present. Like it didn't seem like you were necessarily like stuck in this way. It just seemed like there was, for that period of time, for one reason or another, you found yourself doing these things. But it never seemed like, at least talking to you now, it just doesn't seem like any of that was going to be long term. And like how you talk about your relationship with alcohol, like your ability to just be like, nah, I'm good. Like, I don't want to do that no more. It sounds like for whatever reason, whether it was just like the crowd you were hanging out with, whether it's just small town syndrome, whatever it was, you just found yourself doing these things. But you were always maybe in the back of your head, consciously or subconsciously, knowing that this was probably not going to be for the long term. You were just doing it then, because it seemed like, as you mentioned, you were good in school, you were always respectful to people, always super nice. I'm sure when you got arrested, you were probably nice the whole time. Like, I was, and so I think I don't know, for one reason or another, you found yourself doing these things. But it sounds like, again, you were just you were never in denial. You were never I'm sure you knew what you were doing was incorrect. You're probably very conscious of that, but you're like, yeah, fuck it, dude. Like, this is what I'm going to do for right now.
I'll tell you a really funny story about me getting arrested one time as a kid, and everybody loves this story. So, God, I was a sophomore at the time, so probably like 16. I was talking to this girl at the time that was also my ex-girlfriend, and one of my friends in our ROTC unit wanted to have a party at his house. They were drinking and smoking weed at the time. And I didn't have a car at the time. I had just had a motorcycle, and I had essentially convinced my ex-girlfriend to pick me up at my house, and then we drove over to this dude's house, smoked, drank, had a good time. I had my friend with me at my house at that time. I dropped him off the house, and then I was talking to the girl as we were dropping off my friend. He went and ran in the house, hopped in my window, and he was hanging out in the house. Well, I guess as this was going on, cops drove by. Keep in mind, this is 1 o'clock at night in a rural small town. Why are you parked on the side of the road? And I was in the driver's seat, and I thought it was the girl's car. It ended up being her dad's truck. So by just being in the car and driving it, technically I accidentally stole his vehicle. This never occurred to me at the time. I was high at the time. So they take us all out of the car. They call her parents. The worst part about it is we're in front of my parents' house. We lived out in the county, so we were like right out by a county road, and then my house was literally a stone throw away. And it was cold outside, and it was drizzling. It was like just barely raining. And they handcuffed me to the front of the police cruiser or the sheriff's car. So I was getting rained on. It was freezing cold. And they put the girl in the car, of course. And, the sheriff's department was just telling me, they're like, you just stole a car, right? And I was like, no. And they're like, yeah. So you weren't allowed to be driving that vehicle. You didn't have permission. So I accidentally stole a car. And I had a small personal amount of weed on me at the time. So, of course, I had weed on me. And both of the parents came out. My parents were pissed. and they were talking about beating me in front of the sheriff's office. And, bless those sheriffs. They obviously realized it was just two kids being stupid. They realized that the parents would take care of it. So they let us go. But I don't know how many people can say that they've been arrested in front of their house twice. Because one of the other times that I got arrested for drug when I was a junior, I got arrested in my front yard. The cops were over at my house, and they had found out that I was, selling drugs at the time. And funny enough, my mom actually turned me into the police. She found some of my drugs, and I guess it was her instinct to call the police. Our next door neighbor was a sheriff. And it was really funny too. That was another funny situation because me and my dad were like, let's go fishing. We'll go fishing together. We went fishing, had a good time, bonded. We got some Whataburger afterwards. Amazing day. And then I show up and there's like 6 cop cars at the house and I get arrested in my front lawn.
You think your mom turned you in and like in a way of like trying to keep you from this life? You think it was out of good intention, or are you thinking?
That's a good question. I think my mom was a bit of a narcissist, that kind of comes with like drug addiction and alcoholism. She said that the reason that she called it in was because she saw the drugs in my bedroom and she saw the death of herself. So I think she was afraid that she was going to take some. So I guess you could say it's kind of like a narcissistic or like personal reason for her. I don't think it had my best interest in mind. If my kids were, doing something illegal, as long as it didn't entail, them killing somebody, or something really heinous, I certainly wouldn't turn my kids in. Yeah,
I was thinking maybe some roundabout way. It was her way of maybe like shooting you straight almost.
Right.
Sounds like that wasn't the intention.
Well, it wasn't. But I feel relatively grateful for all this type of stuff. Like I said, earlier, I just want to be a resource to people. And as I pursue this jiu-jitsu dream and this desire to compete and, compete at a high level, I just want to be a resource to the kids that don't have everything figured out. I think we're in an era of jiu-jitsu right now, especially where kids are starting younger than ever.
Yeah.
Which is, really great. And there's a lot of parents that are resources to their kids. They're, running their social medias for them at a young age. They're getting them sponsorships. Some of them are relatively rich, so they're able to send these kids to competitions that, otherwise, like most kids couldn't make. And I also was part of the generation coming up where I'm not sure if you're familiar with this, but have you ever heard of the Believe and Achieve program through Art of Jiu-Jitsu?
I haven't.
Okay. So Believe and Achieve was a jiu-jitsu program that was put together through Art of Jiu-Jitsu, and there's been a handful of them. I know that Essential Jiu-Jitsu with JT Torres did something similar, and Dream Art, what was it? Yeah, Dream Art in Brazil did the same thing, but essentially they're social projects. The gyms essentially sponsor fighter houses, and they bring out athletes from around the globe. You can apply for it. And these big gyms, with a lot of financial backing, bring these competitors from all over the world and then give them the opportunity to become professional jiu-jitsu athletes. And they really kind of help them pave the way. They provide housing. They get them part-time jobs. They give them coaching jobs, part-time at the academy, and essentially give them all the tools necessary to be a pro competitor. And there's a lot of competitors that come onto the scene that have no resources. Jiu-jitsu is a notoriously broke person sport.
Yeah.
So, I'm a really big proponent to the Daisy Fresh guys. I thought when, they were first in the laundromat, I thought that was really beautiful because, they're all poor. They're doing it for the love of the sport. And I think sometimes that can be a detriment to guys, but also I always really root for the poor people, because I grew up poor, and I was a poor kid through jiu-jitsu. When I was 18, I had to work in the trades and then compete full time on top of that. So I didn't have these same resources that some of these competitors have. And now that I'm older and I've able to accumulate some wealth, I'm able to give a really good crack at this So I really want to try to make something of myself and let people know, like, hey, look, if you work really hard, like, this stuff can work out for you. You don't need sponsors. You don't need rich parents. Like, it doesn't matter if you come from, a broken home or a bad background. Like, this is still possible for you.
Yeah, I mean, I think that's an important message. I think it's important, man. We talked about it with Dom, too, in kind of a similar fashion. We're in an era as well where it feels like everyone just wants to be happy 100% of the time. And they're constantly chasing this dopamine that is unrealistic. And I think the message that you're providing is kind of the alternative of that, because it's like you probably weren't happy a lot of the time. Like, there's a lot of grueling days that probably really sucked. But now you can look back on that and say, hey, I did that. And it's made you who you are now. And then it allows you to be this resource because you've lived through it. And so you can relate with these kids who grew up, maybe they grew up poor, or maybe they just don't have the resources, or maybe their parents just didn't believe in it, or whatever the case may be, and they didn't want to spend the money on it anyways. So you can relate to them, and you can kind of, then, like you mentioned, be that resource for them in a different way than other people may not be able to, because maybe they didn't have that experience. The other thing there too is like, like, you bring up Daisy Fresh and training in the laundromat and like how you root for those guys. And I think that's just natural. I think it's the reason why big professional sports just don't carry the same weight that they used to, at least once you start training in martial arts. Like, it's really hard to watch the NFL. It's really hard to watch the NBA. It's really hard to watch these sports because you see some of the things that happen and you're like, bro, what the, like, you pulled out because of what? Like, you're not playing tonight because of what? You're like, what? You get paid how much? Or you see, this has been happening a lot in the NBA. I don't watch it, but I'll follow it every once in a while. My buddy's a big fan, and he'll keep me up to date a bit. But dude, like, you see these teams in the playoffs get blown out by like 60 at home, and you're like, the fuck is wrong with y'all? That is embarrassing. You should be embarrassed. Like, your paycheck should be stripped. Like, that should just be unacceptable. There's fans who spent their hard-earned money to be there in the crowd, to watch you play, and then to get blown out in the playoffs by 60 as a professional team.
It's crazy.
It's fucking unacceptable. It's unacceptable. And that is, I think, the draw to MMA, to jiu-jitsu, because most of the guys doing it, women doing it, it's for the love of the sport. They love this shit. Like Adele Fornerino was just that main character doing the camp. And dude, I went to the camp that day. I did the day pass for that Friday. So it was Cassia Mora, Oliver Taza, and Adele. Mm-hmm. And I was just blown away by Adele. She was just a incredibly sweet human being. But the one thing she just kept repeating, but it's different when someone's just saying it, but you could actually feel it. You could tell that she was telling the truth, where she was like, dude, I love this shit. Please ask me any question. Come up to me, like, give me your name. Tell me about your story. What got you in the jiu-jitsu? And she kept repeating it. It was one of those things where, like, people say that, good salespeople, da-da-da-da-da. But she meant that shit. Yeah. And it was really cool. And it's really cool when people do hit even a level of success in jiu-jitsu where, yeah, sure, you're not as rich as some NFL players, or you're not NBA stars or whatever, but you're making a good amount. You're making a good living doing a hard as fuck sport. And for them to still be like super cool people is awesome. And I think that's the draw to jiu-jitsu. That's the draw to MMA, is that I know people who just hung out with Dustin Poirier and they just on the couch, just chilling. And he's just a dude, just cool as shit. And I think you still have a lot of that. We'll see how long that lasts with, the UFC continue to grow now on Paramount. We'll see how long it continues to last. But I think in jiu-jitsu, at least, we have a long time before that dies, because people still aren't making that much money. There's still a lot of people competing for free pretty frequently. There's a lot of us who are paying to compete. And so I think in jiu-jitsu that's going to live for a while, but I think that's what draws us to that sport, because it's genuine. And the other aspect is there is no fucking excuses. Like, it's just you and that other person. You're either locked in the cage or you're locked on the mats. And if you lose, it doesn't matter why. Doesn't matter if it's bullshit. Doesn't matter if your excuse is legitimate. Doesn't matter if your shoulder was hurting or if this, that, or another. It genuinely doesn't matter, because you'll continue to lose if you allow those excuses to give you an out, because it's just mano a mano, just one-on-one in there. And if you continue to make excuses, you'll just continue to lose. You just won't get better at the sport. And I think those culmination of things is just what makes all this shit so beautiful.
Yeah, man, I agree with you 100%. And as a side note, as far as competing goes, I think there's an importance in saying that if you win or lose, it doesn't really matter.
It is also true.
I watched when I was a kid, I grew up right at the end of the era of like Gi Jiu-Jitsu being at its peak. When I first started training, excuse me, Gi Jiu-Jitsu was really popular. No Gi Jiu-Jitsu and leg locks were just starting to become a thing, because I got my blue belt around 18. So that was 2018. That was right around the time that Gordon started to ascend to greatness. I think that was right around the time he won his first ADCC. So
2017 ACC.
Yeah. So literally right there.
Yep.
And I think when Gordon started to rise to fame, I think that's when no-gi jiu-jitsu started to rise to fame as well. Regardless of your opinion of Gordon, one of the things that you can't deny is that, he was kind of like the golden standard for a jiu-jitsu competitor, and I think he brought a lot of eyes to the sport. Even as controversial as he may be, man, he's done wonders for the sport.
Sells fights.
Yeah.
Talk about what Connor did to MMA.
Yeah, no, 100%. It's really funny because now running my own jiu-jitsu program, I have guys come in and, I'll talk to them and I said, oh, what gets you interested in jiu-jitsu? Because the majority of people coming into a jiu-jitsu or a MMA or Muay Thai, whatever type of martial arts gym it might be, they have a very minuscule understanding of the sport, even less so on like the professional side of it. They say, oh, maybe I watch UFC, maybe I watch Joe Rogan. But every once in a while, I'll have a guy come in and they're like, oh, I heard about it through Gordon Ryan. And I was like, oh, cool. I trained with John Danaher, his coach. And they're like, what, you trained with Danaher? Have you trained with Gordon? And it's just like, yes. It's really kind of crazy, that some of the casual people who come in that have a very minuscule understanding of the sport, they know who Gordon is. And that's crazy.
Yeah.
But what I was going to say is I was just getting into the jiu-jitsu competition scene right at the end of the big gi era, because I think like 2016 through like leading up to COVID, I think gi jiu-jitsu was at an all-time high, and I think it hasn't recovered since then. And I remember Paulo Miao released a documentary series with his brother Joao, and they were just getting close to retiring, and they're talking about a reflection of like their training over the years. And obviously, for those who don't know, the Miao brothers have won everything: Worlds, Pan Ams, Brasileiros. They competed forever. ADCC they placed. Really incredibly talented guys, extremely hardworking. And they said that they look back on it and they said that, the wins don't really matter, because they would lose, and at the end of the day, they would go home. Their family would still love them. Their teammates would still love them. And they really just appreciated the process and having fun and helping their friends win and like helping their friends get better. And, that's for me, like how I feel about jiu-jitsu. I tell my students all the time, guys, I'm a resource here for you. The most important thing I can do as a coach is give you any help you need. Don't ever feel like you can't ask me questions. Please come and pick my brain. No, nothing is too dumb of a question. I'm here for you guys. You obviously pay to be here. The worst thing I could do as a coach is not help you if you have a question. Even if you think it's silly, come and talk to me.
Yeah, I mean, it's a beautiful fucking sport, man. And the gi thing, I wish gi was more fun. I wish, I think there's a lot of guys who do it and make it a lot of fun. Like, Jesus. Tynan versus,
Mika?
No, last year at Worlds.
Francisco Lowe?
No, I'm not Tynan. Adam
Wardzinski
versus, Roberto Jimenez.
Oh, yeah. Great match.
I believe that, right? Yeah, that's the match, right?
Mm-hmm.
Dude, that's when gi can be so much fun. It's just some guys are just boring as fuck when they do it. The whole grip game is, if you know what's going on, you respect it. You're like, okay, I get it. But dude, then you watch a match like that and you're like, why can't we play jiu-jitsu? Like, why can't y'all do this? Because it would make gi so much more fun.
Right.
And it would make gi arguably just as fun to watch, if not more fun to watch than no gi, because gi has all the same potential submissions with the exception of heel hooks, but then add a million freaking collar chokes. And collar chokes are so much fun to watch. Yeah. And they're devastating. They're the worst they're the worst kind of chokes to be put into, right? Like people walking around with hoodies thinking they're safe. Like, dude, that hoodie's going to decapitate you.
Yeah, and I mean, I trained with that generation of gi guys that were really exciting. Back when I was still training jiu-jitsu, jiu-jitsu is very heavy pressure based. It was all about submission. There wasn't a lot of stalling. It wasn't until I started to train under my first gi world champion when I was 19. I was training with Pablo Silva in Houston. If you're unfamiliar, Pablo Silva is originally a Gracie Baja black belt. He won worlds and actually beat one of the Mendez brothers. So,
yeah, okay.
I mean, granted, he had a lot of matches against them and only was able to edge off one win against them. But
it's an important one.
Dude, yeah, exactly. So it's like, to be able to win a world championship and defeat a Mendez brothers, you're one of the best guys in the world. And I remember when I started training there, obviously a lot of it was about submissions, but also we started to learn the tactics of how to win tournaments.
Yeah.
And
gamifying it.
Yeah,
points.
I remember we started to use lapel guard and the 50-50 to sweep people and control people. And we used that game as like the 50-50 lapel game is a way to nullify jiu-jitsu. And I used it to win IBJJFs. I competed a lot in the gi back in the day and won a lot of IBJJFs. But what I realized is that it was too effective at nullifying people's jiu-jitsu. And a lot of my jiu-jitsu and competition started to revolve around nullifying people's jiu-jitsu. Mm-hmm. It wasn't about submitting people anymore. I was more concerned with winning than trying to submit the person. Yeah. And they wanted to do the same thing to me. They wanted to nullify the jiu-jitsu, collect the points, and then win. Yep. Because, winning or being exciting wasn't a reward because you didn't get paid for it. Mm-hmm. All that mattered was that you got a gold medal and got an Instagram post after you won, Yeah. And that was one of the big reasons why I switched over to no-gi. I realized that the gi game was becoming so much less about submissions and so much more about just winning on technicalities. Yeah, and it's unfortunate, dude, because again, it can be so fun. It could be so fun. And I don't know why there's not more submission-only gi. Like, I think it could be really fun. I think it can be done. And maybe that's just me being hopeful, just because I think deep down inside, I just love gi. Like, I just enjoy training gi. I enjoy rolling in gi. Beating people up in the gi is far more satisfying because it's one of those ones, like, I think Owen Jones has pretty famously talked about this, but in no gi, there's not a lot of luck involved, but there is athleticism involved a lot. Like, if you're bigger, faster, stronger, there's a lot of positions that you can get out of just because of those things, right? Like, it's harder to hold someone down and like cement them to the ground. In gi, that's not so much the case. Right. In gi, dude, someone will make you rethink your entire life because they can pin you and you won't go anywhere. And I've talked about this ad nauseum on here, dude, but Amanda Canuto fucked me up one day. Yeah, I believe it. I mean, dude, she just had me stuck to the mat in side control, and it was just the most impressive thing I've ever, I was just mind blown. And yeah, in gi, there's just not a lot of luck involved. So it would be fun to watch to watch gi like sub only matches.
I thought about at one point at my old gym, like doing something kind of like Thursday night jiu-jitsu, but doing it in the gi.
That'd be cool.
And just doing something fun like that. I think it would just be cool.
If you ever do it, let me know. I'll do some gi matches over there.
Dude, I think it would just be really enjoyable. I don't know, maybe down the line. I actually forgot about that idea until just now. But yeah, that was something I had thought about for a while because I was like, dude, I think you can make it fun. Mm-hmm. But so many people tell you can't make it fun, so maybe it's just not it. Maybe it just really isn't possible. Maybe there is a reason why it hasn't been done. I know Fight to Win does gi matches.
Yeah.
I think does Submission Hunter do? There's another one that does gi.
Submission Hunter Pro still does gi.
Yeah, they do gi as well. I think it's just a matter of like retraining some of the athletes to be more exciting.
Exactly. And I don't mean to cut you off, but I was actually going to say, especially because gi jiu-jitsu is still a very Brazilian dominated sport. A lot of the Americans have switched over to the no gi. And still to this day, all of the academies that are known for their gi jiu-jitsu normally are run by Brazilians.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, but there's this cultural difference between like the Americans and the Brazilians, especially after training under Pablo. I realized that Brazilians, when they train, they don't want to give up a single inch. They want to win every single interaction. And, Danaher talks about this in class a lot. That's the most counterintuitive way to train.
Yeah.
And we could start to get into training models in a minute. That was one of the things that I wanted to talk about.
Yeah, because you do CLA, so
Yeah, dude. I'm a black sheep in the essence that I'm a big fan of CLA. But what I was going to say is I remember my first time training with Pablo Silva as a blue belt, and I thought he was going to kind of work with me. I was a blue belt. I was 155 pounds at the time. I think Pablo was like 155, 170.
Just fucked your life
Black dude. Oh my god. Dude, any young, kid that thought he was going to fucking put the sauce on Pablo. Oh my god.
Yeah.
Dude, Pablo just...
I've had a similar experience.
Dude, I still remember some of the ass beatings I got from Pablo. I don't know if he'll ever see this, but I will say to this day, and Pablo, if you're watching this, man, thank you for being such an amazing coach. I really give props to him. I don't know if you're familiar with him, but he has the biggest kids program in all of Texas.
Really?
His kids classes are insane. He'll have 100+ kids on the
What do you think it is?
He's the hardest working motherfucker I've ever known.
You see, okay, I want to talk about this. It'll take us into training models. Yeah. There's two things I want to pick your brain on because I talked to Dom about this as well. But two things. So just so I don't forget. The first one is the thought process of being way too nice to your new people. Right. And then the second one, why is there such a gap in jiu-jitsu in the gyms where day one is just miserable to non-athletes, to people who come in that have very little knowledge? And to your point that we talked about earlier, you find this to be the majority of the people that walk through the doors.
Right.
So first off, the first one, I'm very much in the mindset, and you can call me old school, dude. I'm very much in the mindset like, look, dude, I want you to beat the fuck out of me because I think about it from the opposite perspective, because I've played football all my life. I competed in CrossFit. Like, I've always been an athlete. And so when I got to jiu-jitsu, I had that leg up on other white belts just because break falling, front rolling, things like that were very intuitive to me and very natural. And so I very quickly learned how to invert. I very quickly learned how to just do a lot of fun stuff. So jiu-jitsu became very enjoyable for me from a very early on experience, right? But I've learned that you kind of take that for granted. When you see certain people come in, maybe they're 35, they're 30, they've never played a sport in their entire life.
Yeah.
They when they walk, they cross their feet just naturally. Their heels click and clack all the time. And you're like, oh, there is just some things that just aren't as intuitive as I thought they were, just because it's just been very much me since I was 4 years old. And you see, I guess that was kind of that was a tangent into the second point. But the first point, though, is some gyms have this thought process of oh, you have to be very nice and baby the new people. And then you see these white belts working with a black belt or an upper belt that at these gyms, and then you see them maybe get a sweep or something. And some gyms are in the mindset of oh, that encourages the keep coming. And for me, being me, again, I think I couldn't believe anymore that is the exact opposite. There's no way in hell I would want to see a day one person come in and sweep one of your upper belts. if that was me, I'd be like, oh, dude, I'm not coming back here, bro. Look what I just did to you. And I've never done this before. Like that to me gives me the exact opposite thought that they're trying to give. They're trying to give it like, oh, look what you could do. I want to see what I can do. I don't want to do it and then be like, what did I just do to you? Like you've been training for how long, sir? And then the second point quickly, and I'll let you,
no, you're good.
Let you give me your thoughts. But, the second point, like, it goes back to what I was saying. Like, you see these people who come in and maybe they just hadn't played sports, and you see them not be able to break fall. You see them not really be able to front roll, and they're day one, especially if they're a female. They're day one. They come in and they're just thrown right into drilling whatever class is today, right? And that's the typical day one experience for most people. And they come in, and the thought process is, well, you'll learn half guard today, and then if you keep showing up, you'll learn mount tomorrow, and you'll learn back the next day, and eventually you'll be able to piece those all together. By 3 months, you'll have an idea of all the positions, ideally, right? That's kind of the thought process. And I just feel like there is the biggest gap in jiu-jitsu gyms for a program that is geared for that first week or that week or whatever it is. And Dom and I talked about this, and it's a double-edged sword because it's like, do you pay an instructor to be there just for trial class students or just for day one students? Or do you kind of continue to do it the way that it is? And if they sign up, they sign up. And if they don't, they don't. Like, what are your takes on this as someone who is, running a program and inspiring to have their own place?
Dude, I have a lot of insight on this, and I think I'm going to offer a really interesting perspective to you.
I love it.
So first things first, let's talk about that first point that you mentioned, and it's that the majority of people who aren't coming in, they're not athletic.
Yeah.
I will say, you are in the minority of the people who want to come in and get the shit beat out of them. That is the minority of people. Yeah. Because first of all,
I've realized this.
Yeah, I was the same way when I was a kid. I started as a kid, so I thought I was the shit. I was getting into street fights as a kid. So when I came in, I was like a buster. I was like, yeah, I'm gonna scrap with everybody here, and I'm gonna try to take everybody out. And of course, a lot of the young kids that come in are the same way. I have 18 and 19-year-olds that are blue belts, and they're super tough. This generation of blue belts are tougher, and they think they're gonna come and take me out. And I'm like, son, I've already forgotten more than you'll ever know. And those people, those young kids, I beat the shit out of them. Yeah. Because that's what they want.
Yeah.
But that's the minority, okay? And we need to understand that. I look at it not only as like an athlete and an instructor, but also as a business person. When we run a business, especially with our new trial class guys, and this is different per gym, some people are trying to run a different type of program than I am. I'm a big believer that jiu-jitsu is for everybody. I don't think a certain level of jiu-jitsu is for everybody, but I think everybody can benefit from it. I like to be pretty inclusive at my academy. One of the things that we actually have at my academy that virtually nobody has is a growing women's program. I'm really big on the inclusion of women. I love teaching, women. My girlfriend is a high-level purple belt. She just recently competed and broke a girl's leg in half. I pray that girl heals really well. But she's also one of my scariest training partners, by the way. Kayla Smith is one of the scariest leg lockers I had ever encountered. But let's talk about it, right? So on my day one people, I treat them like eggs, okay? Like they're very fragile. You want to keep them in your hand. You want to keep eyes on them, and you want to make sure that they don't get dropped and cracked. Okay.
Sure.
A lot of the people that are coming in have never done a sport. They're unathletic. They're probably, out of shape, overweight. And if you bring these people in and you say you run like a traditional jiu-jitsu class, okay, we're going to drill arm bars today. They're probably not going to understand that.
Yeah.
It's going to take a few classes, like just to even get like, the spatial awareness or like the body awareness to do those things, it's not productive. Secondly, if you allow them to roll on the first day, and you just kind of tear them loose and say, and I'll explain how I do my beginners, and then it'll offer some insight on this. But if you let them roll, if they start standing, Danaher always talks about this, the biggest injury cause in grappling is uncontrolled falling weight. If they fucking get taken down by some D1 wrestler kid and they base out and snap their arm on their first class, they're never coming back.
Yeah, for sure.
And when I first started running my classes, I tried to teach jiu-jitsu, but I tried to teach it in a conceptual manner, and I paired everything together. So like my whole week's lesson, everything would flow together. But then the problem that I ran into is, what if we have a beginner on day 3? Like, we've been drilling arm bars all week and arm bar setups and all this stuff, but now this dude's coming in and he's missed the other 3 days of it. Okay. So it's really difficult. So the first thing you want to mitigate is the risk of injury for beginners, because if someone gets injured in their first month, they're probably not going to come back unless they're crazy.
Yeah.
And that's the biggest thing. Injury for beginners is really, really high. And injury is what kills businesses, actually, at least from what I've understood. So injury is a big thing. And then the other thing is if you're teaching in a traditional manner, you have people come in, you show a technique, you show the steps to it. Say, if you do A, B, C, and D, you'll end up with E, right? That's not always going to be the case, because as soon as you add resistance, the white belt's not going to even understand what to do with that resistance. So the technique falls apart. They get frustrated. They don't understand what's going on, and they get discouraged and quit. So injury is a big issue. The traditional teaching model is also a big issue, okay? You could say that the guys that teach concepts, which I think is a really good way to teach jiu-jitsu. I really respect all the instructors that try to conceptually break things down. I think that's a better training method than the traditional one, in which you come in, you learn a technique, you drill it statically for 15, 20 minutes, and then you roll. I think that's the worst thing ever. I think it's super unproductive. And I like a lot more what we do at Danaher's. Obviously, we're all pros at this point, or semi-pro, and we have a good understanding of jiu-jitsu. So we come in, we do a bunch of different techniques. We do a bunch of active drilling. It's not a static. People are giving resistance. We do positional training, and we get, our reps in on the positional training. And then we do rounds with some type of objective. Okay, you could say that they're constraints. That's never a word or vernacular that'll be used in Danaher's training room. I don't think he's ever going to use the word constraints. But it's positional training with a constraint. Somebody starts seated, somebody starts standing. That's a constraint. So I think that training model is way better. So let's get into the CLA stuff. And I know this is very, very, very sensitive subject. When I announced that I was going to be starting to run a CLA program for Legion Jiu Jitsu, my program, man, dude, I got so much backlash. It was crazy.
It's so crazy how many people care.
Right?
It's so crazy. But I think David and I, apparently you're not allowed to think this way, but I think there's just room for both. And I think there's a time and a place.
100%. 100%. And, Greg Saunders, what he says is that it's not that we don't have evidence of CLA training working, because CLA is a training model that's not even exclusive to jiu-jitsu. I don't know if you know this, but originally it was really popular in hockey and baseball. So CLA, I'll kind of, no, you're okay.
Yeah.
I'll kind of explain like a brief history of it, just so the viewers who are unfamiliar with CLA or ecological training can get an idea for it. So CLA training is a scientific training model that was developed by sports coaches and sports scientists. And what they realized is that I'm trying to think of how I want to explain this, because I can go down the rabbit hole, and I want to make it short and precise for people so it doesn't get misconstrued. It was a training model that was developed for hockey and baseball originally. And it essentially was that the traditional training model didn't work for everybody. And I'm assuming that everybody is going to have a general understanding of jiu-jitsu. So let me explain it in terms of jiu-jitsu. The way that a traditional class is formulated, and I'm sure you've experienced this before, you come in, the instructor may run a warm-up. If they do that, first of all, that's probably like a good sign to run. by the way, guys. If your instructor is performing a bunch of warm-ups and you're spending 15 to 20 minutes of your jiu-jitsu class warming up, you need to leave that gym. That's not a good gym.
Really? Why do you say that?
The thing about it is like if you come in at a reasonable time for the session, you should know your own body. You should be able to stretch and warm up in an effective manner. And when you guys get into active drilling situations, if the room is relatively warm, I keep my room warm for that exact reason. I don't like to run the ACs. You're going to get warm. And I tell my guys, listen to your own body, trust yourselves. Like, and then if you're still not 100% warm, your first round, don't go 100%. Don't go balls to the wall. Go 50%, get a good sweat, make sure you're warm, and then the next round, then you can really kind of amp it up. And
it's crazy because striking's striking, we warm up.
Yeah.
Always.
Yeah.
Jump rope, jog, line drills.
Wrestling's the same way.
Yeah.
Wrestling is a very cardio intensive.
Because it's actually kind of a pet peeve of mine. I'm getting old.
Right. So you got to warm up.
Not warming up kind of fucking drives me up the wall.
Right. Well, what's to say that you can't show up to class 15 minutes early or 10 minutes early, 5 minutes early and do your own warm up? Yeah,
it's challenging because I go to the noon class on my work, Right. So like,
it's understandable.
I'm sitting down all day, and then when I get there, you're going right into it, and it's just interesting to hear that perspective because I think that jiu-jitsu classes should, for one, I think they should be an hour and a half. I agree. I think that should be a norm. I think that should be norm, right? I think they should always be an hour and a half. So that way you did have that time at the beginning. I can understand in an hour it not being very efficient.
Let me retract my statement a little bit. I see the value in stretches and warming up if the class time doesn't prohibit that.
Yeah, okay. I see what you're saying, yeah.
The issue is I currently share a space right now with an existing gym. So we have classes after the instruction of jiu-jitsu. So I'm kind of pigeonholed into this.
You have to be done at that time.
Exactly.
Got it.
So I could definitely see the value if you're running an hour and a half.
Okay, thank you.
2 hour sessions, then it's perfect. You have the opportunity to warm up. But that's not the case for most academies.
Yeah.
But I also think you know your own body better than anybody else. So some person's warm-ups might not be ideal for you. The other thing is a lot of, and when you do CLA-based training too as well, the games warm you up.
No, this is true. Yeah. I think it's fun as fuck.
Yeah.
I think it's fun. I think I would be interested on your take when it comes to like beginners doing CLA versus the traditional, like at least like some kind of like drilling, because I think for me in particular, being a few years in, CLA is a lot of fun because I already understand conceptually from each position what I'm trying to accomplish. And so then when we're playing this game, I can now have the opportunity to then try a lot of new things that maybe I want to try in roles, but sometimes you just end up there or you're not thinking about it in the moment. And so the games really allows me to try new things. But I'd be interested from like a new person's perspective on like, sometimes I feel like those games wouldn't make a lot of sense to them either.
My guys love it.
Yeah, interesting.
So let me take a step back real quick, and I'll explain it conceptually to the best of my ability. Like I said, I'm still diving into the scientific literature behind it, but the CLA training model was not originally developed for jiu-jitsu. It was for other sports like baseball and hockey. I can't exactly explain why they started to do it with those sports, but I can start to explain it why they do it for jiu-jitsu. First of all, the training model of traditional jiu-jitsu it's not as effective as it should be, okay? And CLA is really big on concepts, okay? And what a concept could be identified as is what we call an invariant, okay? And an invariant is a model, which again, is not even used for jiu-jitsu or hockey or baseball. It was a model for math. And if I can simply explain it, it's going to be something that remains true regardless of external circumstances. So let me explain an invariant in terms of jiu-jitsu, okay? An invariant would be if I collect chest to chest with my partner, okay? It doesn't matter if I'm in side control. It doesn't matter if I'm in the mounted position. I should look to elongate my partner's limbs, okay? We always know that when we're about to do a bench press, we do a bench press right by our chest, right? Because this is the strongest point at which we can press. If we put it overhead, we're much weaker. Weak. You're very weak, right? Yeah. You know, your bench press could be 300 pounds, but your overhead press might be 135 pounds. So if we're able to elongate our partner's limbs, did you hear that pop?
Oh yeah, that was beautiful. Jiu-jitsu, ladies and gentlemen.
Yeah, jiu-jitsu.
You should do it.
We understand that this person is much weaker now. And once we elongate their limbs, we could set up things like arm bar, head and arm chokes. We could transition to triangles. We could get really good control. The same could be said if we collect a chest to back with our partner and we wrap our hands around our partner in a meaningful way. That could be a tight waist. That could be a seatbelt grip. That could be a double under grip. If I'm able to collect the chest to chest and wrap my hands around my partner and then put them between my hips, it doesn't matter if I'm to the side of them, I'm directly behind them. It doesn't matter if I roll forward, if I keep my hands connected, my chest connected. It doesn't matter if I roll forward, I can look to take my partner's back. Think about it. You have them between your hips. You have your arms wrapped around them. You have the chest to back connection. If I sit to my butt, I can throw my hooks in. If I sit to my hip, I could throw one of my hooks in. I could pull them to the other direction, throw my other hook in. Same thing on the other side. Mm-hmm. If I roll forward and I keep them between my hips and keep that chest to back connection, I can throw my hooks in. These are going to be models that remain true regardless of external circumstances, okay? So we have invariants, which are concepts or constants, however, whatever type of vernacular we want to use for it. And I explain on first day what an invariant is. Another one would be when I'm playing guard, I want to keep my feet pointed towards my partner, right? If you're playing guard, you don't want your feet turned around the other direction. They're going to take your back, okay? So we understand that invariants are things that are going to remain true. And this is how we really simplify jiu-jitsu for our beginners. I tell all my guys first day, a good goal for you is to get past your partner's legs, collect the chest to chest and wrap your hands around your partner in a meaningful way. You're going to be able to hold them down. If you can collect the chest to back, you can maintain control of them, okay? So it doesn't matter what type of game we're running that day. Those guys can understand those invariants, and we start to conceptually teach our guys jiu-jitsu. And I think this model is super effective at taking the beginners from 0 to 80%. Now, I might differ a little bit in terms of how Saunders looks at it right now, because he understands the literature obviously much better than I. Like I said, I'm just now getting into it, reading the literature, listening to his thoughts on it. And also my friend Jordan Hawley, who's a very successful black belt competitor, 3rd at ADCC Nationals, by the way, very talented black belt. He's kind of coaching me along the way. We're actually supposed to have him out for our first ever CLA seminar soon. And it's really cool. So Jordan came out recently and trained with us. And we ran a game in which we looked to wrist pin our partner when we're passing guard. Okay. We understand that if something is pushing against us, this is a post. All right. We understand if something is pulling towards us, it's normally a hook in jiu-jitsu. Your feet can be hooks. Your feet could also be posts because you're pushing them away. If you have your arm underneath, that could technically be like a hook because you're hooking your partner to pull them. Or if you're pushing away, again, this is like vernacular, obviously frames, posts, same thing. But we were working this guard passing game, and the goal was to look to control your partner's wrists and either pin them to the partner on the ground or pin them to your partner's body. And I was doing the game with Jordan Hawley, and he was passing my guard every single time, just killing my guard. I feel relatively confident in my guard. And he's taking away my posts. And if you get between your partner's legs, like let's say you're passing on headquarters, it's going to be very difficult if you can't use your arms as frames to push away your partner to manage and maintain distance. And they're between your legs because you can't maintain distance either because your legs are between them. You can't really pull them. You can't really push them away. So by collecting all of the posts and hooks, it's so easy to pass someone's guard. Joseph Chin is a notorious wrist pin passer, and he's arguably one of the best guard passers in the world. And as we run these games, I'm starting to realize, you work these finite positions that you otherwise wouldn't work in practice. Like, I've never worked wrist pin passing before, ever, in my jiu-jitsu. I remember Dima Maravani, I hope I pronounced his name right, came out to a jiu-jitsu camp at B Team and showed us the technique a little bit, but otherwise I'd never used it before. But when you're running these games, you start to see the value in building these skills and these concepts. And I think it takes your jiu-jitsu so much further because you're getting so much more exposure to it. Whereas if you spend the majority of your class drilling a move set and then you do a little bit of positional training and then you just do open rounds, you're never really going to find yourself in these positions. Maybe for a few seconds during the roll. Maybe for a few seconds I have the opportunity to wrist pin my partner. But if we ran the game, I spent 10, 20, 30 minutes working my wrist pin passing, and otherwise I would have only spent 10 seconds there.
Yeah, it's interesting. Yeah, I mean, it makes sense, right? I don't get the arguing back and forth about it. I think like I said, I think there's a time and a place for both. I personally think that CLA classes are fun as hell. Yeah, I just think it's really enjoyable. It's fun at the bare minimum. It's just fun. And to your point, I think it is a much smoother class in the sense of you're definitely warm by the time, if you do open rounds at the end, you're definitely warm. There's no doubt about it. It's almost like wrestling, like doing a stand-up day. And by the time you get to rolls, you're like, oh, this is awesome. I can actually move roll one, right? And like it's the same thing, like drilling wrestling. You just naturally just get so warm, you get sweaty. And I think the CLA games are the same. Dominic runs a CLA class, so when he coaches, that's what he runs. I think for the most part, we run more of like a traditional class at house. But when Dominic comes, it's definitely just a nice change of pace, right? At the bare minimum. I think that I just don't see why you can't do both if you wanted to, or do one or the other. Who gives a fuck? Right. All that matters really is the results at the end. Like, how good are your students? Like, how is when they go to open mats, when they go to other places, are they doing really well versus people their skill level? Are they succeeding people who trained a lot longer? Right. I think whatever works. Right. And it was really interesting actually hearing you break that down. I don't think I've really actually like listened too much into it. But I think I think someone who can explain conceptually something, I think that is far more important than someone being able to explain a move step by step. Right. I would agree with that full-heartedly because that's how I coached striking. I'm trying to coach in concepts. Right. What can I teach you that may apply to what we're doing today? Mm-hmm. But if you can take and extrapolate the conception of it, you'll be able to apply that in a different situation or another situation. You mentioned like elongating somebody in mount. I think one of the things someone was asking me, I was at the main character camp, and another guy from Triple Threat out in Marble Falls, he was asking me, he's like, what is it about like training in the Danaher system that you think is so different? And I was like, honestly, dude, I just think it's their ability to articulate how to make someone else's body extremely weak and conceptually teach you like different ways to make someone just so much weaker than someone else can explain. Like, the thing that always comes to mind that just blows my mind, and just maybe it just wasn't something that just wasn't explained very well, just maybe something that I've just never really heard somebody call out, but it's like so simple, just getting an underhook and flaring your elbow. And it makes them trying to retract that underhook 1,000 times more difficult than if your elbow is pinned to you and you just have your underhook with your elbow tight to you. If you flare that elbow, dude, they're stuck. And it just, that level of pin now becomes so much greater. And I talk about the other way that I explain like Danaher's system and like training under Dan and Abe is like, we're trying to leave you with 0% chance, not 1%, not 2%, 0. I want everything that you decide to do from here on out to be a bad choice. Yep. Doesn't matter. Doesn't matter if you sweep me. Doesn't matter if you get this position. Doesn't matter if you do this. I want to be able to, essentially, you're almost in control the entire time. But you also have a counter to anything that they could possibly throw at you. Right. And, let me take just one step back because there's two things that I wanted to explain about the CLA system. I can ramble on and on about it. Obviously, it's a really a nuanced topic, so there's a lot to say about it. But there's 2 points that I just want to make that I didn't make earlier. First is we teach invariant, and that's
concepts. Secondly, the point of constraints, right? So I think a lot of people misconstrued it and they think that it's just positional training. While you are training in a specific position, the difference between it and traditional specific training is, okay, let's say I do a specific round on a hurl call. All right, you're going to go ahead and collect the back, and you guys are going to work either to escape or submission. So that feeds you to play into your A game most of the time because you want to win the round. This is just something in our head. Danaher tells us to work against this, but I think the human psyche, the human ego, we want to win.
Sure.
I don't want to go to Kingsway every day and get my ass whooped. I mean, I do some days. I really like get my shit kicked in, but I still want to try to win. I don't want to go in there and be like the nail every day. It's just human nature, right? And maybe some people are infinitely more humble than me. I don't know. Maybe people are inhuman and they just are so much more humble. But if we say, okay, you're going to collect the back, and all I want you to do is use a certain, you could use either your arm or you could use your leg to isolate one of their arms. It doesn't matter which side. You have to isolate that before you can start to attack the neck. Mm-hmm. Okay. And this little difference is what I think separates CLA training from traditional positional training. And it's that it forces you to essentially work within the class framework, okay? You have to isolate one of the arms before you can attack the neck. So you build the skill isolating arms, whereas if you were just running a traditional positional training, you don't like to isolate limbs. You just cinch in a rear naked choke, some type of gable grip, and you crush their face, and maybe you escape. But it's that idea of working that constraint. It's building that skill of isolating the arm in that position that takes you a little bit further. A good example of this is like when we're passing. Most of the time we don't collect the wrists and pin them to the ground or pin them to our partner's body. We maybe collect an underhook and then we knee cut through because that's our best pass. Maybe we switch our hips and we start head quarter stacking, the person. Maybe we tripod pass. We do what's best for us. Whereas if the coach implies that there's a constraint to the training, you're forced to train under that framework. Mm-hmm. And that's where you build the skill, is because we're taking something away from you and saying you have to do this. And that's where all the good work comes from.
There's probably some problem solving too.
Right.
There's probably something there with actually remembering it.
The other thing about it is the way that I pin wrists on someone might not be the way that I'm 170 pounds. How much do you weigh?
About 210.
You're about 210. I guarantee you the way that we pin wrists is going to be different. Okay? So I don't pigeonhole my students and say, you have to pin the wrist here and you have to pin it this way. I say you could pin it to the body. You could pin it to the ground. You could use one of your legs to pin the arm to the ground. Mm-hmm. You could use both of your legs. You could use one hand and one leg. And then people have what's called behavior expression. And this is people choosing to do their own things that feel comfortable to them. And I mean, I'm telling you, man, I have white belts now that can wrist pin past me, wrist pin past my guard. Obviously, they're very tough students, but it's crazy to see the skill development so quickly.
That's interesting.
I'll tell you what blew my mind about the CLA training was I ran a kids class and then I ran an adults class. And this was about my first week into doing it, okay? And I told my kids, who are about 8 to 10 years old, I have a little girl, her name's Lana, very talented now that we're running the games. I told her, all right, Lana, here's what I want you to do. I want you to put both of your feet in between your partner's legs, and I want you to find a way to push and pull her at the same time. And she was like, okay, push and pull at the same time. And I said, see what happens. She puts both of her legs in between her partner. She collects hooks. And then she grabs the girl's ankles. She pulls her ankles, and she pushes her feet forward. She knocks the girl to the ground. She's never done a lumberjack sweep before.
Yeah, a little like Koichi's, what is it, like a
I can't think
double Koichi?
Yeah, I can't think of the Japanese terminology.
I might have said that wrong. But
yeah, no, you're okay. But she pulls off the sweep, and she said, did that work? And I was like, did you sweep your opponent to the ground? She said, yeah. And I said, did you push and pull your partner to the ground? Yeah. I said, well, there you go. You did it. I had a overweight guy come into my adults class. I told him we were working chest to back connection. I said, all I want you to do is get chest to back with your partner, wrap your hands around your partner. He said, okay, got it. So put him between your hips. He opened his legs, put his partner's body between him. I said, all I want you to do, tuck your chin, roll over your shoulder, take them with you, and then throw your legs over them. I had a fucking unathletic 200 plus pound white belt first day do a rolling back take. And I was like, how the fuck did I do this?
Yeah.
This is crazy.
Yeah, I mean, that's fascinating. Do you run into any issues with someone just unable to figure something out eventually?
That's a good question. So I provide caveats throughout my training. There's a misconception that you can't provide explicit instruction while doing CLA work, because they think that no drilling equals no explicit instruction. I don't know why this is. I had the same misconception when I first started. I was like, okay, so he just speaks in gibberish and like he's a wizard. That's like basically what I got out of it, because I was like, how are you never going to do it without drilling or explicit instruction? But that's not the point of it. And that was my own ignorance to the subject. But I provide caveats. So I'll look around the room, I'll see the guys running the game, and normally everybody kind of runs. Just like when you're teaching a technique, everybody kind of runs into a similar problem.
Sure,
like they're missing something. And that's where the explicit instruction comes in. Maybe, let's say in the instance of wrist pin passing, they have a problem where they pass to north-south, they pin both of the wrists to the chest, and then the knees come to the chest, and they start trying to push you away with their knees. Well, maybe instead of using both of your hands on the wrist pin, you use one of your legs, and then you push the knees away with one of the hands. Okay? And then I see like around the room, okay, we've mitigated that issue. Now everybody's on the same, track. Everybody's understanding it. The other thing about the CLA model is they talk about class scaling. And this is another thing that I think is super interesting, and it's that the idea that eventually the games will get stale, or everybody understands it and they get pigeonholed into doing the same stuff. So we have to apply new constraints to the games, new goals, so people can continue to build their skill. I experienced the scaling training with Jordan Holly. We were working a passing game that I had worked, and then we got into the wrist pin stuff. And that's when it got interesting. And some of the games are extremely difficult. Like even for high level guys like me and Jordan, it's like we're either starching each other during the game. It's like the person on bottom can't win to save their life. So we have to scale it back, and we have to change the constraints just to give the person on bottom an opportunity to win. Then when they get comfortable, we take that stuff away. Then we get back to the hard stuff and it scales. It's this idea that our training model is never going to be perfect. We have to constantly adapt it. And I mean, the same could be said about Danaher's system. I'm sure Danaher, after every class, he looks around, he sees what went right, sees what went wrong. He goes back to his Palantir, his crystal ball, speaks to Sauron, and he's like, all right, what are we doing next? I'm sure that this is stuff that he thinks about all the time. I've never heard him talk about it in podcast or explicitly how he scales his classes, but I'm sure there's some methodology behind it,
Well, I'm sure. Makes sense, right? I mean, he's definitely watching.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I mean, he's obviously watching. I had a little fanboy moment. I got to go to the pro class a couple weeks ago, and we were drilling, and we built up to like a sumigashi, and I hit a sumigashi. And obviously, I'm a little nervous, just being there in general. Even though I know all the guys, like it's just kind of like silly. Like you get nervous.
It's nerve-wracking.
Yeah, it is. It's nerve-wracking, right? And then like Danaher's watching you because you're the new guy, and he's trying to make sure you're not hurting nobody, etc. And then I hit the sumigation. He was like, "Nice sumigation," and I was like, "Oh shit." That was cool. Last question, because we gotta get out of here. I gotta run the Naga. What was the class's response to it? Because obviously you ran a different program before. You switched it over. What was their response?
Everybody loves it, man.
Yeah.
I think the CLA stuff, especially as people start to understand more and more the nuance of it, and they start to actually read the literature, because there is science-based literature on it. I think it's going to become more and more popular, and I think that training model is going to be the future. I don't know to what extent, but I think a lot of people are already starting to dip their toes into the water regarding the CLA model. I know I certainly am. But I think it's going to be really huge. I mean, just to look at DeAndre Corbet, we understand, because I've listened to Greg Saunders talk about him a lot. I don't know exactly what belt he came to Saunders at. I think he was a blue or white belt. But we know that Saunders said he was pretty bad when he showed up. And to see him show up as a white or blue belt with very limited skill and run this training methodology, his entire thing. And now him and his brother Gavin have opened up a gym and they're running the same training model. But we see him go from white belt, blue belt, very little skill, to ADCC,
Very
to
good.
trials, you know, and not to, you know, rag on our friend Dom here, but I remember I watched DeAndre beat Dom at one of the Enigma Invitationals, and that was my first time seeing one of the standard guys really compete at the highest level. I was like, wow, this is incredible. You know, Dom's an extremely talented athlete, and I'm sure they've competed and he's beat DeAndre before, and, you know, if he hasn't, I'm sure he's going to get his lick back, you know, God willing. I always want to see my teammates beat everybody else anyway. But to see him, you know, be able to pull something like that off, I'm like, wow, maybe there really is something to this training methodology.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I mean, look, I think there's obviously a place for it. At the bare minimum, it's fun. It's fun. At the bare minimum, if you have a school and you do it once a week, twice a week, there's nothing to lose from it outside of everyone's going to enjoy that class a lot.
Right.
Especially if you already have guys who are pretty familiar with it, or like pretty familiar with jiu-jitsu, and you give them these games. I think it's just fun in general.
Right.
I feel like I learn a lot when I do it. Yeah, I mean, I enjoy it. Nonetheless, tell everybody where they can find you, what days you coach, class schedule, etc. Shout yourself out.
Yeah, you guys can find me at JTH Jiu-Jitsu on Instagram. My programs, JTH Jiu-Jitsu. My Jiu-Jitsu program's Instagram handle is Legion Jiu Jitsu _ATX. I'm in the Oak Hill area, South Austin, so you guys can come see me, come and try out the CLA model. I just want to give a shout out to Phalanx. Obviously, I work with the Phalanx guys. Amazing guys, really great company, guys. If you're looking for high quality gear, you know, go check out Phalanx. They make all of our academies custom kits. They look super sick. I don't know if you've seen them.
I have. Yeah, they're dope.
I'm gonna get you a pair, bro. As soon as we do the next order. So if you guys want some of the Legion Jiu Jitsu kits, guys, DM me at either of those. We're gonna get another set of them made. And also shout out to Eric the Defender. He's my sponsor. He's pretty much my father-in-law at this point. He's an amazing criminal defense attorney based out of Houston, but he does service the Austin area. He helps out a lot of jiu-jitsu guys, sponsors people. He's really big in the community.
That's cool.
Yeah,
it's cool to see.
Amazing guy, man. I really can't say enough good stuff about him. If you guys ever run into legal trouble, please, please, please talk to him. If you guys ever talk to the cops when you're getting into legal trouble, shut the fuck up. Don't say anything to the cops. After you get out of jail, call Eric the Defender. Just shut your mouth. Just shut your mouth. Yep. Don't say shit to the cops. Call Eric the Defender.
It's true. Don't say nothing.
Don't say nothing.
Plead the fifth, man. Yep. You're going to say something, get twisted up, get caught in a lie or caught in something, or you misspoke, whatever. Don't do it. Nonetheless, I'm gonna come drop in.
Cool. Dude, come and see me.
I would absolutely love to. It's I just got to plan like what days to drive, but I'm gonna make it happen. I would love a kit. That'd be dope. I had a pleasure talking to you,
dude. It was awesome. We'll have to do it again sometime.
I could talk to you all day. I really enjoyed it. I think you carry yourself very, very well. It's always astonishing, the young guys. I think it's always good. You know, like I told Don the same thing, man. It's like it's a real positive in the sport, like the young guys coming up and what they can do for it. I think there's a lot of really, really good things coming. I think the sport's only growing, and I fucking love it. Yeah, man. I mean, hadn't met you before, so it was nice to meet you.
Yeah, dude. Pleasure.
Yeah. Thanks for coming on. Yeah, dude. That's fucking it, man. All right, y'all. We'll see you next week. Deuces.